Tasha Echo. It's Mystic with a message. How y'all doing today? Um, I'm gonna be back and forth with my intros, y'all, for a little while because I don't know how I want my intro to be right now. So, um, one moment. We are still working off the live right now. Let me get comfortable, okay? Comfortable. Mm. So you got comfortable beforehand, right? Look, it's a baby. It's a baby. Okay. Get my comfy pillow over here. All right. And I've been in bed. All that. All that. Okay. So I want to come and talk to you guys about reality. What is reality? One second. What is reality? Because that's a topic that's like something that's always brought up in a conversation between me and someone else. Like a lot of people will tell me like be realistic, and I'll be like I am being realistic. um so I wanted to share my point of view of what I feel like, or what my reality is, what reality is in my eyes. um so we all know that there are different dimensions and there are different planes of existence, right? So a lot of people be like, okay, so the dream world or the dream realm will be the fourth dimension, but we are currently in the third dimension or the 3D dimension or whatever you want to call it, right? I'm trying to figure out why in people's minds do um I'm sorry. Let me catch up with my own mind. Okay, so if it just takes a little bit of meditation or astral projection and you project yourself into another dimension, why do people view Earth or our experience here on Earth as being something other than something spiritual? Like every single other dimension or plane would be something that is of a spiritual experience. But when we get here, because we appear as something solid and everything around appears to be as something solid, it is something that is not a spiritual experience. Why is that? Um, that's so funny to me because if you're in a dream realm, like it be you have a dream that's so realistic, and in your dream, everything that you touch is solid, right? Everything that you feel is something that you feel, right? You in your dream, you have a solid body. You can feel your body. You can feel your steps. You can feel your breathing. You can feel everything that's going on in your dream. So when you wake up and you come back to this plane, why is it that this plane is not viewed as a spiritual plane or a spiritual, you know, um, experience? And that's mainly where I do view my experience here on earth as a spiritual experience. A lot of people tell me like you're too spiritual. You spend too much time in the spiritual aspect of things and not in the reality of things. And it's like, okay, what is reality? Like what is the reality of this situation? Because if we didn't have our spirits, we wouldn't even be here. Like We are spiritual beings. And I feel like that should be always a thought first. Like that should always be our first thought. This is a spiritual experience. This is not a something other than that. Like what is there other than that than a spiritual experience? What really is there other than a spiritual experience? Please, can anybody answer that question for me? And not in a rude way. Seriously, like I'm allowing you guys to answer that one question for me seriously in the comments. What other experience is there other than a spiritual experience if we are spiritual beings? And if we didn't have our spirits, then we wouldn't even be here to have this experience. So what other type of experience could this possibly be? And a lot of people look at it as, okay, well, there's so many things going on. Like the weather's changing outside. There's snowing right now. It snows, it rains, it's hot, it's cold, it's springtime. There's cars, there's houses, there are all these things that are products of our imagination that started first as thought, and we created and brought into our reality, to exist into our reality. But does that mean that but that still doesn't mean that earth is not a spiritual plane? Like this is not a spirit, like I'm really trying to figure it out. Because if you watch a movie, and this is so funny because this is something that me and my husband have been talking about. If you watch a movie, like for example, um, Doctor Strange, or maybe like what's that one movie? We were just watching it the other day. It was something that I wanted to watch. It's a Disney movie too, you guys. um It's about the little black girl who has to go find her dad, who is apparently trapped in another dimension because he found the he found a way to vibrate to another dimension. And so she had to travel through a bunch of different dimensions, basically following the path that he was on in order to find him and get to him, right? But every dimension that she went to and went through. The only thing that looked kind of funky or weird or different was the portals that she traveled through. But when she got to the actual planes that she went on, all the planes resembled something like Earth. All the planes, all the different, dimensions that you will see somebody travel through on a movie or a TV show is something that resembles Earth. It's never something that's too far off or too misconstrued to be too differently from what's going on here. When you astral project, you still project yourself outside of this. It appears that you're outside of this shell, but you're still on this plane, right? You're still somewhere floating around Earth, even though you have the ability to float somewhere outside of Earth or whatever. But it's never too much different from your experience here. And even if there is something different, who's to say that this experience here is not, who's to say that that earth is not a spiritual realm, that this is not a spiritual plane, that we are not um having a spiritual experience. That's one thing that like gets me all the time, because people like, be practical, be real, be realistic, and I'm like, well, what is realistic? What is reality? What truly is reality? Because that's the way that I view it. I view it as this is actually a spiritual plane that we're on, and that we have fallen so low out of consciousness and vibrating at such a low frequency that a lot of people don't really realize or remember that this is a spiritual experience. But you see, it's a lot of people who, excuse me, once they get into certain things, like eating a certain way, doing yoga, doing meditation, all the hippies and gurus and the, all the weird people like me, right? The people, all the weird people like me, which not calling myself weird as an insult, it's a compliment because we're different and we're not stuck to the same thing and we actually see the world for more of what it actually is. Um, they all are raising their consciousness, raising their frequency, and realizing that it truly is a spiritual experience and it's not just something separate from that. Like every other experience. That's so funny to me because it's like when you're born or when you're being born, right? You're coming from some magical spiritual plane of existence, coming down into your mother, right? The process. You go through the portal into this reality, this realm. And all of a sudden, when you're here, it's no longer a spiritual experience. But then you pass away and you go on to some other spiritual magical experience. Why is it that this experience right here, after you've come through the portal, you travel through the portal, you come into this realm of existence, this is no longer a, and I'm could just, this is all I'm doing is just keep asking the same question over and over again. I just realized that, yeah, because I really want to know. This needs to be a topic of conversation. Um, why is it that so many people view this as, and I might go to my Instagram with this one because I know it's a lot of little people that's here with it that I could actually go back and forth with this conversation with, but still, like, you guys can leave your opinions in the comments below, as long as it's not nothing negative or anything rude. But yeah, okay, so before you're born, it's a spiritual experience. After you pass, it's a spiritual experience. But this time right now, like I'm supposedly not having a spiritual experience, and I'm not on a spiritual plane in a spiritual realm. How does that possibly make sense? And what is this? What is this? What is this? If it's something separate from that and that, what is this? What is this? What is this in between? What is this in between? What is this supposed to be called? What is reality? um I'm done with asking the same question over and over again, you guys. Like I said, leave your opinions below in the comments, cause I really want to know where people's minds are with this one. Um, because that's a really good question, especially if you truly sit down and you think about what I'm saying. Like that's a real good question. And I really need somebody to answer that for me because I'm so sick and tired of people telling me that I need to come to be reality. And I'm like, what is reality though? But I feel like you're not being realistic because you're not in tune with what's truly going on around you. If there were more people truly in tune with what's going on around them, they would understand that, and that wouldn't even be such a weird question for me to ask. You feel me? I feel like, yeah, like I was saying, all the hippies and the gurus and the the spiritual people are the ones who are so much more in tune, and it's like we have a better understanding of what's truly going on around here. And if you speak to someone who has the same mind frame as me, you will see how truly it's really sensible. Like a lot of people look at somebody like me and listen to what they saying and try to call them crazy, rather than, and not even listen to what they're saying. Not even listen to what they're saying. Hear some of what they're saying and call them crazy rather than actually truly listening, taking it in and thinking about it. And like truly thinking about that. Like it we make a lot of freaking sense for real. Like a lot of sense. And you know what? Wow. I got a lot of wow. I'm just coming up. I just been like having a lot of growth lately, you guys, and just coming to a lot of realizations with a lot of things. I'm gonna have a couple more videos for you guys. I'm definitely gonna shoot one right after this. Like I said, I'm still on live action for a while. That's okay. Yeah, I got a couple more videos for you guys. We're gonna be talking about a few realistic conversation topics. I'm so funny. Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Um, I would really like this video to be shared. This is a good topic of conversation. Like, even if whoever you share it to or send it to don't necessarily comment on this video, even if they comment on your post or whatever, and you guys talk about it, like, this is a good topic of conversation, I feel like, for a lot of people who are conscious and a lot of people who are just got comment who just got sense, who just got some sense, and they just out here just lost. Period. Anyway, because the people who's just lost ain't even gonna hear nothing that I'm talking about right now at all. You know, some people who got some actual sense, they gon' this is a good topic of conversation. So yeah, please like, share, comment, subscribe to my channel. And I see my husband walking up onto the house now. So I will go. I love you guys so much. Don't forget to stay nappy. And we are vibrating high. Mwah!